And here we go. We have reached the pinnacle of the evening. It is main event time. And I know we've set some kind of a record with the podcast only being about a minute and 15. I'm sorry, an hour and 15 minutes. Because we had fight dropouts. We're going to have more stuff to go over later in the week as they do some rebooking. You guys know the UFC. They're always going to shuffle things around. They'll probably throw together another one of those last-minute contender series type of fights where both guys are making their UFC debut and they just chuck them in there at the end of the week to try and fill the card out. So there's probably going to be some more stuff to look at a little bit later in the week, but here we are. Before we break down this main event, I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you one more time. We've got 330 live viewers, and for a shit card like this one, when there's MLB, when there's basketball playoffs, all this stuff's going on, you could be anywhere. You're choosing to be right here with me, and I appreciate each and every one of you. You guys are awesome. Remember, here on the Die Hard MMA podcast, we always promote positivity. We don't need to add to that toxic shithole that is Twitter. Here we go. Here we go. The legend Frankie Edgar returns. And he's finally making his bantamweight debut. This is the thing that we've all been waiting for, right? Realistically, Frankie Edgar probably should have been a bantamweight his entire career. Let's just go ahead and get that out of the way right now. He has been fighting men who are so much larger than him his entire career. And now that the UFC landscape has changed, now that these guys are all bigger, heavier, stronger, he's finally being forced to move down. Is it too little, too late? That's the question. Is it too little, too late? Let's dig into some of these numbers. I know I don't always like to get super number driven, but both these guys have a lot of numbers, so it makes it really kind of easy on this one. Let's start with the betting lines. Pedro Munhoz is a minus 250 favorite right now. Big chunky favorite here. Frankie Edgar between plus 180 and plus 210 on the comeback, which, if we're being real here, is not a bad line for a legend like Frankie if that's the side that you like. Frankie Edgar is 38 years old, so he is knocking on the door of 40. Bufo on the beat. What's up, buddy? Thanks for hanging out today. He's knocking on the door of 40. He's 38 years old, 23-8. Surprisingly, he's only got 2 knockout losses on his career. I know we all look back and we talk about how bad Frankie Edgar's chin is these days, but he's only been knocked out twice. One of those was the incredible knee coming out of nowhere from Brian Ortega. And then, was that an uppercut? I'm mixing that up, my bad. And then Chan Sung Jun flatlining him when he took that fight on short notice. So Frankie Edgar's been knocked out by 2 incredibly explosive guys. I think the Brian Ortega fight was on short notice too, wasn't it? I feel like it was. Am I remembering that wrong? Somebody remind me. Pedro Munhoz on the flip side of this thing, 33 years old, just barely skating out of the prime years of his fighting life, 18-4. He's done very well for himself lately. Dropped a split decision to John Dotson, put together a good, solid 3-fight winning streak over Brett Johns, Brian Caraway, knocked out Cody Garbrandt, cost me some money that night, and then dropped a decision to Aljo Sterling. So he's fighting the top of 135 at this point, and he's having some success. He looked very good in that Aljamain Sterling fight. So let's talk about what these guys are good at. Frankie Edgar has a constant threat of the takedown. High caliber wrestling, high caliber takedown offense. We saw him when he fought Yair Rodriguez. Absolutely big brother, that man. Took him down, beat him up, over. Good boxing, good head movement. He's really fast, and he does a good job of mixing in leg kicks and body kicks. Pedro Munhoz on the flip side of this thing, he has sharp boxing. Actually, these guys mirror each other really well. He's got big power, hard leg kicks. So he does everything that Frankie Edgar does, just maybe a little younger, maybe a little harder. 81% takedown defense for Pedro Munhoz. Aljamain Sterling went 0-7 on takedowns against him. He uses a front kick to maintain range really well. And as we saw in the Cody Garbrandt fight, he is more than willing to get into a firefight. This guy's chin is made out of granite. And he doesn't move his head. Never once will you see Pedro Munhoz move his head. So what this comes down to is these guys were a 3-round co-main event fight, and now they're going to be a 5-round main event fight. Frankie Edgar has so much championship experience that it's not even funny. Frankie's fought in title fights his entire career, essentially. Fighting Ben Henderson twice, Jose Aldo, the matches with Gray Maynard, BJ Penn, Uriah Faber. He's been a main eventer against Cub Swanson. He fought Max Holloway very recently. This dude knows how to go 25 minutes. We have never seen Pedro Munhoz in the championship rounds. And for me, that leaves a little bit of a question mark. Frankie Edgar gets the check in the wrestling department. Pedro Munhoz has excellent takedown defense. Pedro Munhoz gets the check in the jiu-jitsu and submission grappling department. He's a black belt. Frankie Edgar's been around the game long enough. He may as well be a black belt. He has solid takedown defense. And unless I'm mistaken, the man has never been submitted. I think this is going to be a stand-up fight. And I think the line should be a whole lot closer. I am not betting this fight yet. I don't know if I will. But if I had to make a pick, I would say that the value is going to be on Frankie. I know everybody's saying that it's an easy pick for Pedro Munhoz. But this is not your classic situation where the elder statesman is moving weight classes and probably should just call it a day. Frankie Edgar has been fighting somewhat competitively with the highest level of fighters in the world, even recently. He just went 5 rounds with Max Holloway and struggled with the height and the reach, but he was in that fight the entire time. Yes, he got knocked out by Chan Sung Jung, but the zombie is an absolute freak. I don't think Pedro has as much power as Chan Sung Jung does. He does have power, don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting him whatsoever. Sean, thanks for jumping in. You're at the end of the breakdown. We're ending the show. This is the main event breakdown. You can watch the replay over on YouTube. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way here. I'm done betting on the aging legends. And that's where I'm sitting. That's exactly where I'm sitting. If there is a bet to be made for me, I think it's on Frankie. However, I don't think I can trust Frankie here. And this is going to be one of the few times in Frankie's career that he's actually got a reach advantage. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, I want to say. He's got a 68-inch reach to Pedro Munhoz's 65-inch reach. So Frankie should have been at 135 the entire time. So he's not cutting a ton of extra weight that maybe he shouldn't have been cutting. This is where he really should have been all along. So it's got a bit of a different feel for me in that spot. The way that Frankie moves, the way he moves his head, I think it's going to cause problems for Pedro Munhoz. We really saw Pedro Munhoz struggle with the range of Aljamain Sterling, and Frankie Edgar is going to have that reach advantage on him. So I think if Frankie moves around, gets in, gets out, mixes in the leg kicks, mixes in the takedowns, if he starts getting takedowns in the third, if he can get a takedown in the fourth, this can be a late victory by Frankie Edgar. If he can avoid getting clipped, if he can avoid getting into a firefight, I think he can grind this one out. I'll be honest. I really do. Pedro Munhoz is going to be too much for him early. But if Frankie can drag this thing late, all the questions are on Pedro Munhoz. We don't know what he looks like in the fourth round. We don't know what he looks like when he gives up takedowns. I know he's had a hard time. He's been excellent. People have had a hard time taking him down in recent years. But Frankie Edgar is a real strong grappler, and he's going to have the size and strength advantage. Maybe not strength. Pedro Munhoz is a strong guy. But he's going to have a more competitive opportunity to get those takedowns at 135 than he did at his previous weight classes. So, I don't know, guys. At this point, it's a pass. Unfortunately for me, at this point, it is a pass. But I think that the line is too wide, and I think there is some value on Frankie Edgar. Do with that what you will.